Aloha, I'm Beth Ann Kozlovich of Hawaii Public Radio, and welcome to Voter Viewpoint. Voter Viewpoint is a series of discussions hosted by Olelo every election season to bring together experts on issues that affect Hawaii voters. In addition to airing on cable television, the programs are available online and are featured on a Vote Central webpage, olelo.org/vote, where you can comment. Transcripts of the shows and all the comments will be given to Hawaii elected officials by year's end. In this program, we'll be talking about traffic and rail. What to do about the traffic implications of Oahu's ever-growing population has affected us for decades, and so has the specific debate over rail. It has filled the airwaves, newspapers, blogs. There are tweets and Facebook friends for every side of the issue. Meanwhile, the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transit, HART, is awaiting the outcome of its request for the $1.5 billion in federal funding. And one of the parties to the lawsuit challenging rail has come out of retirement to challenge Honolulu's incumbent mayor in a largely anti-rail platform. Randy Roth, professor of law at the University of Hawaii, and Wayne Yoshioka, director of the City Department of Transportation Services, have a lot to say about traffic and rail. And in the next hour, they will. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
We are somewhat in a holding pattern as we are taping this conversation now, but you wouldn't know that to hear all the conversation going on about rail and traffic. And certainly if there's anything that rankles anyone on a daily basis, it's the issue with traffic. First of all, I think you'd like to make the point that we're talking about all traffic here, not specifically what will or won't happen with rail.
Yeah, I think when you look at transportation, it's not specific to a mode. I think when you look at transportation, you're looking at motorized travel on roadways, you're looking at bikes, pedestrians, you're looking at transit, both bus transit and now in the future we'll have rail transit as well. We at one time had marine transit with the boat, if you remember that. So I think the whole point of this is that there's no silver bullet. Everything works together to address the issue of transportation, including policy, such as parking policy. How do you handle your land use? Those kinds of things are very important in the big picture as to how you address transportation and the resulting congestion on the roadways. And I think we have to look at it collectively that way. Looking at it segmentally, I think really distracts people from the greater picture.
Although it's a very holistic approach that you're talking about taking, or a portfolio approach, we did many different things to be able to cope with traffic. Would you both agree nothing is rankling people as much as the conversation and the debate over rail? And here it is, still very much a part of this political season. Certainly for you, Randy Roth, and all of what you have been doing in the last several months to make it an issue yet again for people, or to be able to focus it on why they should pay attention to it and what happened to bring it to this point in the first place.
Wayne and I will disagree on a number of issues having to do with rail. And I suppose the first one is that Wayne just described it as something that we're going to have, and I think he was referring to the elevated heavy rail project that is currently being considered, and in fact the city has actually started on construction. I personally am convinced that this rail project won't happen. This elevated heavy rail project won't happen. If any one of four things happens, I'm convinced rail will stop and everything they put up will have to be torn down. One is if the city loses the lawsuit that's in the state courts right now. And oral arguments were in front of the Hawaii Supreme Court just a month or two ago. And based on how the justices were quizzing the lawyers on the various issues, I think there's an excellent chance that they're going to decide that case in favor of the client whose argument was being made by the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. It primarily has to do with the burial issue. The second reason I think rail will not get built, this rail project will not get built, is we have a federal lawsuit that I personally think we're going to prevail on at least several issues. If we win on one issue, rail will be stopped. The third possibility is that if Governor Cayetano's campaign for mayor is successful from his standpoint, if he's elected mayor, He's stated that he's going to do everything he can to stop it, and I'm personally convinced that he can stop it and would if he's elected. And then fourthly, I don't think the federal government will come forward with the $1.5 billion for a number of reasons. If any one of those four things happens, this rail project won't be built. I think all four will happen, but if any one of them happens, this rail project will come to a stop. Everything that's been built will be torn down, and we'll look at something that I think will be a much, much more attractive alternative.
Let's take some of those points that you just made apart just a little bit. First of all, because we don't really know what will happen with number 3, whether or not former Governor Cayetano will be elected mayor. We may not know that even after the primary, depending upon how that happens, plus the fact that the lawsuit, the next time that we're going to be able to hear about that will be August 21st. So all of this coming down in the next little while before we start to really look at what may happen with rail is going to impact it in some way, because certainly the FTA wants to have a willing partner, and if there were to be a mayor who was not a willing partner, you'd agree that would compromise the situation, wouldn't it?
Well, I think it would complicate the situation. But to address Randy's 4 points there, first of all, the state court action, and I'm not going to specifically comment about it because it isn't legal action, and we would want to leave that to the attorneys to argue in the courts. But it's clear that the state suit is without merit, and the federal suit is also without merit. So we expect to prevail on both issues. And on the issue of the full fund grant agreement, which is the $1.55 billion that we expect from the Federal Transit Administration, all indications are right now that that as long as our full funding grant agreement checks out to the satisfaction of FTA, and all indications are we will get the full funding grant agreement in this fall. So again, I think we're well positioned, both in legally and financially, to move ahead with this project. And we are, in fact, moving ahead with this project. There are columns being constructed right now. So this is a long time in coming. This project's been in the works for over 40 years. And a lot of the development patterns on this island are just assume that there is going to be a high capacity transit system able to handle traffic in this very, very urban corridor. And you can see some of that right now. Our bus system is starting to show strains of being able to accommodate travel in this corridor. The corridor is literally consuming my bus fleet because of the congestion in the corridor, the need to add more and more buses into the corridor. We would much rather the rail take over the heavy lifting in this corridor, allowing our buses to be liberated and used elsewhere in the island to provide much better service to the residents.
Are you already coming up with other scenarios that might include not having rail as well as having rail? Are you prepared for whatever may happen?
Well, if you look at this, like I said, the land use patterns on this island are predicated on having a high-capacity transit system in this area. And that's, in fact, it leads to some of the issues that we have now in the corridor of the heavy congestion, because the development occurred under the assumption there would be a high-capacity transit system. If the transit system doesn't occur or doesn't happen, you have the issues that we have right now. And so I think it's high time that we go forward and fulfill the plan that's been there for 40 years to do something about the corridor and the mobility within this corridor.
Beth Ann, Wayne acts as though the only conceivable solution to